Hello everybody and welcome back to Friends of Scales. I am your host Alex Knapp with Captain Aquatic's Fins and Scales. Today we have a very exciting episode. We have multiple reptiles under the table and of course Derp here, the bearded dragon, is sitting up with us today. So today we are going to be doing some reptile myth busting, talking about common myths, misconceptions, and ideas that are often misunderstood. One of my primary goals is to educate people, and one of the biggest things that we can educate about are things that are misunderstood. So we're going to be starting here with Derp. So I'm going to have the camera zoom in on Derp right here for me. So I'm guessing that if you are listening to this show, you or someone you know have heard the phrase, "a fish only grows to the size of its tank." Now that phrase is partially true and it is partially false. What is true about that is that a fish or reptile's body will only grow to the space that it is allowed to. So like Derp here was a rescue who was kept in too small of an enclosure, so his body only grew so much. Now what happens, and where the myth part of this comes in, is that it's only the exterior of their body that stops growing. Their insides, like their eyes and their bones and their muscles and organs, all continue to grow. This causes a condition called stunting, which Derp has. Common signs of stunting are large eyes in comparison to the head. So you can see his eyes are quite large. They kind of bulge out from his head a little bit here. That is all caused by the stunting. Another common thing is kind of short or stubby legs slash ligaments. So you can see like his legs here in proportion to his body are kind of stocky and stubby and kind of a little bit too big for himself. So stunting can be lethal, unfortunately, if it's allowed to go on long enough. Eventually the organs won't have enough room to function properly inside the body. Luckily, Derp here only has a relatively mild case of it. He shouldn't be affected in the long term by it, but it is something that affects reptiles, fish, amphibians. It affects pretty much all animals and is probably the most common condition that we see our rescues come in with, like Derp. Almost, I'd say 50% of our rescues likely have stunting condition or disorder, or whatever you would like to call it. And it is all just caused by too limited space in their enclosure and how they were raised. It's all just caused by a lack of space. So one of the big reasons that providing proper care and enclosures, which we are going to go over a little bit more later in this episode, are so important. So that is myth number one. Fish only grow to the size of their tank. That is false. It causes a condition called stunting, which can be lethal if not caught early. All right, so we are going to move on to our next reptile and our next myth. Okay, so the next myth we are going to be talking about is that reptiles don't have emotions, or that they aren't intelligent, or basically just what a reptile's mental capacity is. It's long been believed that reptiles can't feel pain, they don't have emotions, they don't have intelligence, but more recent research has been proving time and time again that all of this is false. A reptile's color can shift and change depending on their emotions and their stress levels. Oftentimes a reptile's coloration will go slightly darker when they feel stressed and be lighter when they feel happy. It's actually where chameleons, this is actually a little mini myth bust. Chameleons can't change colors at will to match their environments. Chameleons change colors based on their mood and based on their stress levels. A chameleon that's stressed is going to darken its color in an attempt to blend in with its environment, whereas a chameleon that's happy and content is going to be lighter and let those brighter colors that shown that they are so famous for. So, to demonstrate this with us today, I'm going to be taking out Chester. Chester is a mangrove monitor, and monitor lizards are known to be one of the most intelligent species of lizard on the planet. rivaling the intelligence of a dog or a cat. They are highly intelligent. Chester here knows me, absolutely recognizes me, as he will really only allow me to handle and do things with him. He will not tolerate anybody else handling him or interacting. Chester also has learned how to do tricks, which we are going to be demonstrating here in a few minutes. Now, monitors are a little bit of an exception. They are much more intelligent than just your average lizard is going to be. He's going to jump down off the table now, so I'm going to get him back up on the table. So, Chester here has learned to do one trick, and that is to stand for his food, as you can see him doing here. Now, that is something not all reptiles can do. Not all reptiles can learn tricks like Chester just did, but it is something that a lot of reptiles are more capable of than people often recognize. Like bearded dragons, like Derp, the lizard you saw before Chester here, they can often learn to walk on a leash and be leash trained much like a dog could. In general, reptiles are just a lot more intelligent than people will often give them credit for. Like you can even see, Chester's checking this out, but he is kind of recognizing there's not still food in there, although there is still food smell. All right, let's move on to our next myth. All right, so the next myth we are going to be going over, we actually went over a little bit in our last episode. And that is the myth that a snake dislocates its jaw to eat food. Snakes do not have a connected bottom jawbone. They have two smaller jawbones that are like this. And what they can do is they can open those jawbones like that to eat food larger than you would really think they would be able to eat. They do have a connected upper jaw though. Now, I'm going to try to show you this with Wobbles here. I want to make clear that what I'm doing isn't causing her discomfort, though she may squirm a little bit or act like she doesn't love it. I'm not causing her any kind of discomfort whatsoever when I do this. So, we are going to take this and we're going to open her up. Now, Wobbles here is a ball python. So you're going to see that mouth there. You can see how that jaw is moving and kind of has those two different bones. But it doesn't dislocate when they eat. Hopefully you guys were able to see that okay. So, snakes swallow their food whole, so their jaws don't dislocate. They just have a different jaw structure than we have to be able to eat. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so our next myth that we are going to be going over is that turtles and or tortoises can leave their shells. I often get asked if a turtle, has to get a larger shell as it grows, or if it, can crawl out of its shell or anything. And the answer to that is that they cannot. Their shells are entirely connected to their body. Their shells, I'm going to put over an overlay on the screen real quick where you're going to be able to see that their skin is in fact connected to the shell. Their shell is fused to their spine, and their bones and muscles, they do have nerves, so they can feel it when you pet them. And they're just able to tuck in their head and legs, but they aren't able to fully go into a shell or leave their shell. Their shell is a part of them, it's a part of their bone structure, and they couldn't go out of their shell just as much as we couldn't go out of our skin. And that applies to both turtles and tortoises. This here is Raphael. He's a redfoot tortoise, and he's here to help us demonstrate that. You can see a little bit where, these legs can tuck into his shell, but they can't quite, fully go in. They can tuck in to an extent, but they can't fully go inside of their shell. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next myth that we are going to be covering is that reptiles are a low-maintenance or easy animal to care for. This one is true to an extent, but it also, there's reptiles need more care than a lot of people give them credit for. They aren't something you can just sit in a tank and let be and they'll be fine. Reptiles need special types of lighting. They need special levels of humidity, especially in tortoises and turtles. UVB light is insanely important, though it's also important in a lot of lizards. And improper UVB light can cause a condition called metabolic bone disease, wherein their bones don't develop properly or they don't develop as strong as they should. Oftentimes it's another one of the most common conditions we see in our rescues is metabolic bone disease, where you will see they will have curled toes or legs, or they'll be missing nails or whatever else it may cause. It's a very real condition and is very, very easy to prevent if you just give them the right heat, the right humidity, and the right amount of light. Nexus here, who is a short-tailed chromehead python, is probably one of the easiest animals, or one of the easiest reptiles you can get to keep. Snakes in general. Snakes don't require any kind of UVB light, though it is beneficial. But it's not required. They don't get metabolic bone disease if they aren't given UVB light, though often a calcium supplement is beneficial in place of it. And snakes are pretty easy in that most of them just need heat and proper humidity. Now, what that looks like is that when you get a snake or any reptile, they are, of course, cold-blooded. So when you give them heat and humidity and everything, you need different ranges for different areas of their enclosure. This is often what we call a basking spot. A basking spot is going to be the warm end of their enclosure, which for a lot of reptiles is around the 90-degree range. There are, of course, some exceptions. And then the cool end of the enclosure really shouldn't get any colder than the mid-70s for most reptiles. There are a few reptiles that can be kept at room temperature, such as crested geckos, but for the most part, they really need that warmth and that range of warmths so that they can regulate their body temperature correctly, which allows them to digest their food and grow properly. All right, so reptiles, we've covered need a little bit more care than a lot of people give them credit for, so let's move on to the next one. All right, so the next myth we are going to be covering is that reptiles are inherently dangerous or aggressive. This is something that I went over a little bit in the last episode in regards to snakes, where I talked about how snakes are more defensive rather than actually aggressive. But it's something that really applies to all reptiles. A lot of people take reptiles to be aggressive, or they assume reptiles are venomous, or, pretty much just anything that could actually really hurt you. This also is often portrayed in media. In famous movies, they're often seen to be, someone gets hurt by a venomous reptile, or, they get their arm taken off by a big crocodile for no reason at all. And while, these freak accidents can, of course, happen, as they can with any type of animal or person, for the most part, reptiles are always going to be more defensive than they are going to be aggressive. And while there certainly are venomous reptiles out there, the vast majority of them are completely non-venomous. For example, the frilled lizard. Now, this is Lophy, an Australian frilled lizard, and also was a large inspiration for the Dilophosaurus in Jurassic Park. I'm sure many of you have seen that movie. You've seen them. They have the big frills. They puff out and they spit venom. That makes a lot of people assume that Lophy here, who is also a frilled lizard, and I'm going to take out her frills a little bit for you here when she relaxes a little. I'm going to move her frills out. You can see those big frills on the side of her head. Those often make people assume that she is also venomous, or that she can spit venom, or, bite or do some real damage. Whereas in reality, that is entirely just a defensive behavior to try to make them look bigger. She's completely non-venomous. She can't spit venom. She can't do any kind of that stuff. That is not to say that all reptiles are non-venomous. There are certainly species of reptile out there that are venomous. That's just saying that the vast majority of them are non-venomous. All right, let's move on to our next point. And our next point is actually, I'm going to keep Lophy out for this one because there's no one particular reptile that I have that will be a great example for this next point. This next point is that a lot of people believe that reptiles are slimy or they're sticky or just wet in general. In general, unless you have a reptile that just came out from soaking in the water, that is not true. That is true of a lot of amphibians. A lot of frogs and tree frogs and salamanders and stuff like that will be slimy, but that is because their skin is an organ and is how they breathe primarily and absorb water. Reptiles drink water just like we do. They breathe through their nostrils just like we do. So their skin is often just like ours and is more used for defense. So their skin is often more rough and scaly than it is slimy or sticky or smooth, though the bottom of a snake's belly is very smooth. So like when I am holding her and when she is moving and when I pet her back, I don't feel slime or anything. I just feel some roughness, kind of like rubbing very fine sandpaper. All right, now for our last myth that we are going to be busting today, it's going to be the idea that tortoises and turtles are always slow. This is not true. While tortoises and turtles certainly are not marathon sprinters, they can move quickly if they want. And to demonstrate this, hopefully he'll demonstrate this, I brought Steve, our Central American wood turtle. Steve here is a very active little guy. He likes to move, and I'm hoping that he will demonstrate nicely how quickly these animals really can move. If I set him down here, I'm hoping he will, he'll demonstrate that they are able to move quite quickly when they want to. Now, of course, he's not, going to be winning any marathons against a human or even against some other animals, but he is showing you that not all turtles and tortoises move at a snail's pace. They can move very quickly when they want to. All right, and that is going to conclude our show for today. I hope you guys tune in next time around for some more fun information about reptiles. I've been Alex with Captain Aquatics Fins and Scales, and we will see you next time.